Hello, my name is Jana Skokan. I'm the co-founder of Frogeex. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining our Frogeex YouTube channel today. If you like the content that we're sharing and the ideas that we're discussing, please like it, comment on it, and share it. And most importantly, come and join us on our live events. You have the opportunity to discuss with experts, exchange with like-minded people, and expand your perspectives all around topics related to sustainable building, sustainable living. And I also want to encourage you to click the little notification bell, subscribe to our channel, and never ever miss another episode of Frogeex Green Tech Talks in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. So as you know, we are representing Frogeex, the Green Tech Marketplace. I'm the co-founder. My name is Jana Skokan, and we are doing this type of discussions on a regular basis. And what we are looking at are topics all around sustainable building and sustainable living. So this is where we have also the pleasure to have Mr. Sebastian Schlecht with us. Now, why do we talk together? I mean, sustainable building and sustainable living already is a little bit the indication today. The topic is green cities. Now, to just also introduce a little bit Sebastian. Sebastian has an extensive experience with sustainable building or architecture or urban planning. And just to be a little bit more concrete and to give you a little bit of flavor of his background, he has been the board member of the Youth Architecture City Group since 2007 and has some, wealth of experience in terms of strategic management and project management in the areas of environment, mobility, and sports, especially with the focus on the European Green City, which has been Essen. So a very nice project also, which I believe we're going to hear more about. And he's also the member of City Makers China Europe group, which is also a very interesting project, exchanging ideas on sustainable cities or green cities in Asia, or the concepts and ideas that can be implemented also in Europe and vice versa. So this is also a very nice experience over there that he can leverage and share with us. So I also encourage you to, if you have questions, don't be shy, please jump in. You can use the reaction button to put or raise your hand, unmute yourself. We will have a dedicated slot after the presentation. So we have a kind of main part, which is, the focus. And then we're going to have a dedicated part for Q&As. But if you have a question, you can even throw it in the chat. So various options to just position that. And just to conclude regarding his latest project, so he's also the CEO and founder of the lala.ruhr project, Landscape Laboratory. We're going to hear a little bit more about this as well in a few minutes. I believe, as it says already, Landscape Laboratory. So working a lot with concepts, how to develop the built environment, what are the elements we look at, etc. And last but not least, as of this year, he's also holding the role of being the director of Green Cities and Regions in the North Rhine-Westphalia region. So also very interesting perspective that you bring in today, Sebastian, in terms of the development also on the regional scale. What are your thoughts? What are your visions? We are very much looking forward also to hear a little bit more on this, if we get to there, because it's a lot of topics. Sebastian, would you like to take the lead from here, or?
Yeah, Jana, thank you very much for making this possible and for inviting me. And I just prepared a presentation about some views on Ruhrgebiet and Essen Green Capital. And please let me just share. So I hope it works. Are you okay with that? Great. Okay. So just let me introduce very shortly. You already did. I'm Sebastian Schlecht. I'm speaking from the perspective of cities as a green laboratory, as a tool, green as a tool to build cities more resilient, more livable, and more future-proof. And I would start my presentation with this beautiful view on about Ruhr Metropolis and the Zollverein coal mine. So let me switch to that map. This is a map of the Ruhr region from 200 years ago, and it shows a very rural area with some rivers appearing in the north, the Emscher River, in the south, the Ruhr River, which is also the name giver of that region, and in the Rhine River in the west of the picture. And so this region is today one of the most populated regions in Europe, 5 million people living there. But why I kick off and start with that picture is that there is a landscape and an ecosystem existing in that region, which is today that populated. And we are still based, our life is based on the functioning of that system. And so we are in the need to work with it. So if there is rainfall, if we need water, we need resilience, air to breathe, temperatures which are livable. That's all related to the work of nature and the production of nature. And sorry for an issue with that presentation.
Quite some interesting elements that are coming up. We got a sneak peek.
Sorry, I just have to change some setting here.
No problem at all. Let me know if I can help you, you know, or if there is any setting from our side to do. Mm-hmm.
I already experienced that problem once, so let me share again.
Okay, it's loading now.
Let's see, it works. Yeah. Yeah, sorry for that. So Essen was a European Green Capital in 2017, and this was really an experience which made a change of mindset for so many people, because how can city in that industrialized region be a green capital of Europe? And that's really the hard work of a generation who was in charge of handling the leftovers of industrialization. And so the whole region was working on how to keep that region and that area livable in times of old coal mines and closed steel production works, and lots of infrastructure which has to be somehow adopted to be reused and redefined, but still keeping that place livable for all that people and keeping it alive. And the Green Capital of Europe has a tradition in, it's the 12th year now. So Essen was in 2017, Green Capital representing some important topics on that post-industrial cities, and each city has a special kind of setting, and each city is giving examples and showing what ways and what strategies can lead to become a green city. And what is interesting on the idea of the Green Capital Award, which is given by the European Commission, for those who don't know, is that this award is based on an application process, which is very formalized. So you have to apply to become a green capital with applying in 12 indicators. So it's like also like an integrated management or assessment of your cities, indicating in environmental topics like water quality, wastewater management, noise, drinking water, recycling of waste, but also going to education and green jobs, and also to mobility and air pollution, biodiversity, and accessibility of green, and also taking a look on how your strategies are based in your city and how you follow them, and which are also the goals you follow for the future. So there is an assessment needed to apply, and this already puts cities who are taking the chance in a position to be able to talk and discuss their green assessments and strategies. And for Essen, Essen took the lead in a regional application process, and the European Commission was not able to get the, it was not possible to apply with the region. So the European Commission rejected the regional approach, and city of Essen took the chance and applied with the city. But all topics in Essen are very much regional related, because the cities in the Ruhr area are just close sticking together. And the storyline of Essen is also has always to do something with green. So already 100 years ago, there was a need for green, for people to live and to have fresh air in the city center. And it was a development of strategies, because even the some areas of the city have been more industrialized and have a more suffered more under air pollution and less green. So we had also a strategy of green, connecting green spaces and building a network of green areas, which led also to a citywide approach on that green. And very interesting is also that that the Ruhr region had an open sewer system in the whole north that was needed because of the coal mining processes. We have not been able to build a closed sewer because the earth wasn't stable enough, the earth's level wasn't stable enough. And after coal mining finished, we have been able to transform all this infrastructure again to become a natural habitat, and to transform this open sewers to a separated rainwater system, and to recover all that areas in all that neighborhoods to become like a natural environment. And so people started to live beside a river or a water creek, which was for decades, it was a stinky open sewer. So quality of life in this part of the city changed a lot with this strategy, and this took also like decades to transform. Mm-hmm. And on the city level, this was expanded to a network of green railway lines and this river maintenance road. So they have been transformed to cycling and walking infrastructure throughout all the city area to have a green connection network. The 12 indicators I already mentioned, they are really like an integrated management tool, and they are now help us a lot also to implement the SDGs in the city, because they relate a lot to different SDGs and also offer a very good basis to act and to think about which goals and how can we reach them, and which strategies are successful and which are not. The European Commission also offered a green city tool, which is accessible for all cities online. So there is like an own as a self-assessment tool, which is quite interesting to use. And we in Essen developed also a report on that 12 indicators, which is published once a year. It's the first one was published, is a report on 2020, but it was published in 2021, and the next one is in the making. Mm-hmm. And if we expand this green idea on the regional level, we defined a project called the lala.ruhr, the Laboratory of Landscape of Ruhr Metropolis, because we think that it is important to discuss the green power and the chances of green transformation in times of climate and change, and even more urbanization in all areas in the world. So how does that green city look like today? That's the view I introduced you with, having a look over the region. So you see all the trees and it looks really green, but The green city also looks like this. So there's a lot of informal green just on your balcony and on your backyard. And it also looks like this. Heavy storm event in 2014. In the whole area, thousands and 10,000 of trees have been falling on a one-day storm. We also have drought. This was 2018. We had lots of problems with trees. We water them all day. We have heavy rainfalls very suddenly in so many places. And we also, in Essen, there was the first drought fire in 2020. If we have a look at the global perspective on that, this is the global risk landscape from the World Economic Forum. We see that this climate action, failure, extreme weather, and natural disasters are the most risky, the highest risk for people and for their lives and their environment. And this also relates to cities very much, or it relates to cities very much, because their people and environment is, infrastructure is very dense. And what is interesting in that perspective, that in 2018, Germany was also on the 3rd place in the ranking of the reinsurance companies in impact of natural disasters because of the heat waves in Germany in that year. Mm-hmm. So it was just behind Japan and Philippines ranked in that assessment. So even the Central European cities are in effect of that very much. Mm-hmm. And so I have this only in German. I mixed up the slides today. So, but this is a phrase I brought in, and it means we can't go on like this. The world is already built, and we need to change our paradigms. That's a citat from Katja Fischer and Jan Kanzow, and they made an exhibition on care for what we already have, the strategies for architecture. And another strategy is already well known. It's a new Leipzig Charter, and it says cities have to be just and green and productive. And if we also step higher in the ranking or in the global view, the UN also announced the ecosystem restoration decade. And they also say that one of the 5 pillars of ecosystem restoration is the urban area. And they pronounce that green must be in the center of urban planning in cities. So we have different perspectives and different levels of discussing that green city strategy. And we with lala.ruhr, we took the approach and said, let's define cities as a landscape, and let's think of cities as productive landscape. So how can we handle urban nature if we transform cities? There are different ways and different perspectives, and so many different ways how we can connect to it. So everybody has his own perspective, and there's an art and educational aspect, there's a productive aspect, there are planners and landscape architects. Here you see some pictures from some interviews we did, and we also released a short film on different perspective on green cities with these protagonists. And green city also can make a lot of fun and innovation. This is a picture where we had the chance to bring in a challenge of the green city of the future in a hackathon at Places Festival, and this was the first prize winner of the award. So everybody was really happy after 2 days working on greenimizing the city. It also works like this. In Corona, we had a lot of online meetings, but still people like to discuss important topics. if it's online or offline. And we need also pictures. So we had a project called Imagine Green Urban Futures, where we tried augmented reality tools to implement a green planning in the city so that people can experience with very simple technologies different kinds of design of their neighborhood and environment. And we discuss it, we like to discuss and present. And so here we had a workshop on the green city, inner city of Herne. And we released a recommendation of action for the Regionalverband Ruhr. And we worked together with the Regionalverband Ruhr on green infrastructure. And in that recommendation of how to communicate green infrastructure strategies, we found out with lots of interviews and workshops that the different connection to these green topics, which everybody has, if he is a bird lover or a green planner or a scientist on the university. So all these ideas and connections are important to bring people together. And there was one thing which connects all that is that everybody is having a different perspective, but that is also giving everybody some responsibility for that topic. And we want to connect people very much, but also we connect network with different institutions. So we are connected with universities, with institutions of landscape architects and architects, international city networks, and regional and local players, foundations, and the regional administration also. So the lala.ruhr is the landscape laboratory in a widespread networked and collaborative view. And we said that one idea is that all these different perspectives and all these different strategies will form the next big thing, and that's the green city of the future. And we defined a format which is the Biennial of Urban Landscape. It will firstly happen in September this year, so I'm very happy to pronounce it in this webinar, and we will have first information on our website soon. So don't care if there is no information from today, but it will be available with the first program and newsletter in the next days, weeks. So our Biennial of Urban Landscapes will be like a 3-weekend event in September, and it will cover different topics from local aspects, research, experimental technologies with XR and virtual reality and global data. And we will have a perspective from the climate change and climate impact assessment on cities, and especially have a vision of how metropolitan regions can transform to be a livable place in for next and over next generation. Yeah, and lala.ruhr is in that matter a laboratory, it's a platform, it's a network, and it's a biennial event. And so thank you very much for your interest in all that topics, and I'm looking forward for a nice talk and discussion. And thanks a lot, Jana.
Thank you, Sebastian. It was a great presentation. I was just wondering some points definitely that stayed with me. I would first of all I really like the point which you mentioned around everybody has a different perspective and everybody has a different role. So this is or different responsibilities. So this automatically brings us to everybody has a role to play. You know, you have people that are working in marketing specifically, you have people in construction, you have people in city planning, you have people in water management. So everybody has, you know, a certain area to take care of. And that leaves a room basically to collaborate as well. So that is just one thing that I really liked about your approach. And as well, I mean, regarding the city planning and the approaches, because it's quite a quite a big undertaking, you know, to change the thinking, to change the perspective on a city, how, you know, people used to use it for many years before. What was, because the transformation of Essen, maybe we can just go quickly back to one of your, you know, major projects in the past. What was the initial idea? Why did it started to transform Essen, basically, or go back to the kind of, you know, you said you had always a connection with the green areas, etc. There was always a need. I really liked the transformation of this waterways, of the sewer, which you included also optically. I mean, it was a huge difference, apparently very attractive also for people to move in. So what was the initial idea? Why was it resilience? Was it, you know, just making it more attractive, or what was the idea behind when it first started? If you can share maybe, or the early stages.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jana, for that different questions. So firstly, I really want to highlight that I think the different perspective on that green city or urban nature is very much related to personal interests also. So there's a professional interest, but still each body has a very personal, intuitive access to green. If he just hearing birds singing or he's breathing air, and so that's different, also different levels of connecting, and it's very much motivating. So if you work in a city administration, you have a professional access, but still you have this personal access, which also we want to use to invite to join the discussion. And the region of the Ruhr region and the city of Essen, so they have been in a very fast industrialization process, about 150 years. And in that time, environmental issues have been not on the highest ranking. And if there are problems occurred, they have been solved by technology. Implementing this open sewer network in the region was a very important action 100 years ago, because through the coal mining, the Emscher River, which was a very slow flowing river, it stopped flowing because the earth levels have been, they changed through the coal mining. And so the water was not flowing all times. When there was too much rain, the water was flowing back to the villages. And we had in some places cholera epidemic in the Ruhr region 100 years ago. So this open sewer in that times was a very important action to bring to get rid of that wastewater and to make people a secure and healthy life in their villages. So at this time, this was the action to make that region livable, or to keep it livable. And so that authority which was building that open sewer system, the Emscher Genossenschaft, was in charge not only for the wastewater, but also for the health of people. And that's really interesting, because still this Emscher Genossenschaft is caring of that network of infrastructure. And it is transforming today this open sewer system to a closed sewer system, and is also transforming this creeks back to natural habitats with financing through the wastewater fees. So this is an independent organization. It is not really governmental, because it is covering the whole regional sewer system, and is transforming now infrastructure to natural habitats to keep a region livable, and to be able to have a system which is also capable of heavy rainfalls. And it's also much more cost effective, because we have all the rainwater in the natural system, and only the wastewater is coming to that pumping and cleaning systems. And that also is a really huge step. It took 30 years work to transform that, and it's still not finished in all details, but the main pipes, like 105 kilometers, are already changed, and we have so much wind situation from that. So that's and when industry declined in the area, many people lost their jobs. And so we had lots of abundant industrial sites, and many of them very close to city centers, because when the cities grew and industrialization started, the steel factories and coal mines, they just built up their sites very close to the city, close to the workers, and then cities grew around them. So we had abundant sites very close in every city in the area, everywhere. So there was like a depression phase where people just lost their jobs and thought, how can we survive? How can we get new perspective and new work? But there also was a huge chance, which was taken in some decades, to transform this industrial infrastructure also to places of quality of life. So to regreen them, to have places of biodiversity and of freedom of people to move in and have parks there and cycle these old railway tracks through the whole region. And we greened also this this mountains of the how you say in English, all the material coming out of the coal mines, which is not coal, was just put on the dump yard, and then there's huge hills in the region. We call it the Alps of the Ruhr region, and so these places are today places where people cycle and walk and mountain bike, and which give you also a great view over the whole area. So all these industrial places have been somehow redefined. The Zollverein and coal mine, for example, is today UNESCO World Cultural Heritage and is home of a huge museum and art fairs. And it's a place for innovation. It's a place of Folkwang University and startup center and conference center. So these places in many different examples in the region have been redefined, and architecture has been reused. And this was quite a successful step in transforming the city. And nature was always a very important part of that, because the cycling infrastructure is a green infrastructure, and that the areas have been transformed to these parks, have also put some investors in charge to bring new housing projects to places where before was no attraction to live. So we have in essence some places which develop very well through bringing that green infrastructure first in place there.
Sorry, Sebastian, I was on mute. So, I mean, amazing points. I love that also the story. I mean, how you explain. So basically health and being more resilient as for society, basically enabling society to be more resilient also towards maybe sicknesses or illnesses in the past. So that was already the trigger. This is amazing. I recently came across, and we had a separate session on insurance. I see Peter has a question, so I'm just going to keep it short. On insurance, where certainly natural disasters are high on the list. We know that with climate change, it's accelerating the occurrence, the geographical span is increasing. So I totally agree with the statistics that you shared. And maybe just a quick question, because you mentioned rainwater capture. So is there any specific strategy that you apply, or that you applied in Essen, or in general that you also see for the region, you know, to use more of the rainwater, capture, store it? Or do you think, or, you know, from your perspective, you're working in this field for long, is this being used or utilized to the maximum capacity? You know, we get all the rainwater, we utilize it 100%, or, you know, what's your perspective on that one? And I also would just like to highlight for the listeners as well what you mentioned in terms of reusing and redefining industrial zones or industrial buildings, which is an amazing thing, and also the waste element. So that would be maybe one of the following questions. If you can maybe start with the first part, it's quite complex, and then I would suggest we go into Peter's question, if that is okay for you.
Yeah, I try to make it short. Yeah.
Great.
So the rainwater topic is very interesting, because yeah, that's also one point where we see that a green city is key for future cities. because the production of that power of performance of green is very multi-level. And one is that it can keep rainwater and it can store rainwater and it can also cool down cities on hot days. And so that's a very interesting perspective. And it is already in the implementation on so many places, but it's very hard to implement it in the already built environment, streets, because you have to really rebuild all that infrastructure which is underground. All that sewers and rainwater pipes and all that in every street and every house. That's really a job for the next 1 and 2 generations to rethink and rebuild our cities in that systemic way. But there is a quite interesting program now started also from Emscher Genossenschaft, which is the River Transforming Association. And they also now try to support the decoupling of rainwater, roofs and surfaces with a funding program which is supported by the state North Rhine-Westphalia, and it's called Climate Resilient Region. So that's also interesting that now this, based on the former sewer organization, now there is coming up a climate resilience organization with a regional impact. Yeah, maybe that's for the rainwater, and the reusing of that, all that infrastructure is also somehow driven. It is also driven by the needs because we have that infrastructure, but it was very clever and smart strategy to bring also the history of the region into that new strategies and to keep some places alive and just say that it's not lost because economy dropped down. These are buildings which are from very high standard and beauty, and they can be also like other places. They must not be places for machines and work. They can also be places for operas and markets and offices and accessible. And what is also interesting that all these infrastructures have been not accessible for decades and generations because they have been industrial. So all these creeks and rivers have been industrial wastewater and railways. So they have not been able to access for anybody. And also the steel production site have been closed by fences and walls. And now they are open spaces so everybody can enter these areas, which is also a huge win for from accessibility of these city neighborhoods.
Amazing point. Thank you, Peter. Would you like to put your question? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm surprised that you didn't mention IBA Emscher Park. Now, ich glaube, dass da gibt, I think that there are roots of your activities, of today's activities. Could you tell me something about the role of IBA Emscher Park, which started in '88, and it took some 10 years, and you know that IBA then moved to Eastern Germany, to IBA See in Fürstbücklerland, and there I have been a member of Scientific Council for more than 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. And so I am surprised that there is no more something like a rest of the IBA, Internationale Bauausstellung.
Yeah, thank you very much for pointing that out, Peter. So the IBA Emscher Park is very present everywhere. So maybe I did not mention it because it is so present in our lives. Since I studied architecture here, I was always fascinated by IBA Emscher Park. And even today, I work also for Baukultur North Rhine-Westphalia, and we have the offices in the building where IBA Emscher Park main office was before, some decades ago. So the connection is very close. But yeah, so IBA Emscher Park is maybe one of the key drivers of that transformation, because the idea of just the name is just so fantastic. The Emscher Park because the Emscher was the worst wasteland of the region, and there was nothing like a park. It was just polluted and dirty and industrial, and the Emscher River was only a stinky wastewater area. So to call it IBA Emscher Park was already like crazy, a crazy vision. But this vision is today really coming true, that this is really a park. People can cycle and walk, and Emscher is clean today. The Emscher River is full of clean water since this year, and that is really a great step. And also IBA Emscher Park initialized all that transformation of Zollverein coal mine to become a museum, and this idea of this is a cultural heritage and not only an old industrial building. So thanks a lot for Peter for bringing that out. And I also I follow up some other IBAs also, so that's but they are all different. So IBA is there is no IBA like the other. And IBA Emscher Park was also interesting that people mostly recognized IBA Emscher Park when the program was finished. So during all the years that the IBA worked, the people just said, "Oh, what they are doing, I don't understand. They're talking there, and it will never be green here." And so the really the understanding of what was happening in IBA Emscher Park was just starting with the year when they closed, and then people just started to experience and to live. And today it's just so. The next generation is born in the times after that, so it's just every day they are used to have this to climb these mountains and these artworks on the hills of this dust and waste. So that is and have the view of that green region. But today we have a new. So the next step is that the Ruhr area had also a great success with that, and like a rest on that success. But today this climate change impact is hitting us same as every other city, and this industrialization and transforming all that infrastructure, it does not really help us in the villages, in the streets where people live, where heat island effect is still in inner cities, and it's still there. So there is also a next level of green transformation needed, which is now also in the Ruhr region a huge approach.
Okay. May I have two supplementary questions? First is about IBA Emscher Park. My question is if the firma, this firm, is still existing. And the second question, if you ever visited another IBA, because you mentioned also another IBAs, and I'm speaking about IBA when I was for 10 years in a scientific council, Beirat, in IBA in Fürstbücklerland. Have you ever visited this also industrial area?
So the IBA Emscher Park is not there anymore as a brand or company. So it was really like it was closed down, but there are several projects coming up from that, and also several strategies. And also the Ruhr region was a capital of culture 2010. Yeah. And the main places of the capital of culture have been post-industrial places, which have now transformed to museums and to opera halls. And so with that, building up on that, a lot of things came up here. And also the green capital of Europe is the success of the IBA Emscher Park in following strategies. And also the idea that that there is a possibility that regional formats can really drive something. Because we have this many cities here which all have their own authority and their own city government. and sometimes it's hard to bring them together. So that if there is some format that brings these cities together, there's that can be really a driver also. Yeah, and I visited Iwasee once, but it was really on the somehow more in the beginning, and yeah, and I try to be on the move to visit Iba Hamburg or others, but it would be great maybe to have a look at Iwasee once more. There was a hand sign from iPhone. So.
I was also curious, maybe, yeah, you can still use also the chat function if there is, I don't know, technical complication, whatever. And meanwhile, I mean, I have maybe one question to you, Sebastian, still regarding water, rainwater, because we have, I mean, you mentioned that the systematic rebuild of the infrastructure is going to take long. It's a long-term investment and activity to be done. So what about all this, you know, rather recent elements in cities that can be implemented, like green roofs, green walls, you know, all that capture basically already bring the benefits of cooling down the environment or bring a certain reduction in terms of temperature, can store water, and doesn't require necessarily the, you know, the underground infrastructure to be installed. What is your opinion on that? Or, you know, maybe also experience from Essen, or, you know, in terms of any projects that you are aware of in the region where you are currently more active?
Yeah, that's a great topic. So there are so many aspects of green infrastructure and how it can bring benefit to the city. There's like green rooftops, rooftop farming, so people can have a green roof which can cool down the building and the environment and also produce food. And the green facades, which use rainwater already from the roof, not from the ground. So that is, it's also interesting in the view of cost effectiveness, because green roofs, they last longer than black roofs. So invest in a green roof can be cheaper than having a black roof. And there was an event in Berlin some weeks ago where they made a long-term assessment of green facades, and they also recognized that the cost effectiveness was 1 to 4 for the green facade. They had two houses, just same construction. One was with green facade and one not, and they also assessed the cooling effect and the shading effect of, and included the maintenance of the green facade. So if it's well done, it can be really very cost efficient, and it's not always the reaction is that we don't have money. We cannot pay for the green because it's extra money. But in a longer perspective, it really can save us money if we use green performance, because nature is the motor of nature is running for free. So if we fuel it with water and sun and soil, it can really perform very well with cooling and storing that water. But I think if there is, it depends also on the parts. It must be very well assessed if you implement solutions. So we don't need to implement all solutions like everywhere, but we have places where we have lots of risk from heavy storm and stormwater because of the topography of the area. So we have to think about where are heat islands, where it's risk and flooding, and then we have to implement solutions also on using that knowledge. And there's also a very interesting way how we can use like satellite data, sensor data, and all that to put urban nature in function and to know which tree needs water and which not, because today we just water trees and maybe we also fail because there's not enough water, or we water trees which maybe don't need it. And urban nature should be should be put in function, and so that we don't need to bring their water in the summer days. So If we can use sensors, if we can rebuild infrastructure, and we can cover the rainwater in the soils, and so we have tools which work very well to put that nature in function and in well performance also.
Yes, I was trying, to unmute because sometimes it's just difficult. So, I mean, thank you so much. I mean, I love the points which you mentioned around the efficiency of this green element. So it's also great to see the evidence for this, because that is also a trigger for potential investment that is needed in the beginning to just to have it installed, have it done correctly, so it can last long and it can really bring the benefit, as you said, in terms of either costs, long-term, or resources, water or whatever. If it's food, growing food, I mean, it's an amazing element. We just maybe one thing that I would like to highlight. We will have a session very soon. Actually, it's coming next week with a lady. It's a later evening session or evening session at 5 p.m. on soil quality, and we will be looking at urban farming or urban agriculture, how to restore soil quality in urban areas. So I would definitely keep you in the loop. And it's a very interesting thing that you mentioned in terms of urban nature. I just love the term. And I was just wondering regarding the projects which you are preparing now, or maybe we start from somewhere. So for Essen, for when doing this big switch or planning the transition, you mentioned also elements like the railroad or green railroad, how you called it, or the cycling paths. Was there a big investment needed, or do you have also maybe tips and practice to be shared with other countries potentially, or other people or representatives from other cities that could get an inspiration, how to do it maybe at a lower investment? Or what's your advice for them in this matter? Because a lot of cities want to do it. Sometimes it's a problem with money. Sometimes it's really a problem, where do you allocate it so it's safe also for the cyclists, and how do you organize it? So what was your learning from or seeing or experiencing that change in Essen?
Yeah, so the Ruhr region in the last decades was very poor because lots of industry left and people got jobless, so there wasn't much tax income anymore. So the whole IBA Park and that programs have been very much dependent on funding, on governmental funding programs. And I think that's really important that governments see that as an important job to do, to provide or to give municipalities and local governments the framework that they can react on that really important demand of climate adaptation. And to include in that steps, to include this other great outputs of that actions to have a just and resilient and healthy city. So and to provide spaces where people can have go outside their doors and it's not too hot in the summer, and where trees give shade and people can run around. And they can use a bicycle instead of a car. So there is so much multifunctional benefit. And but what is really interesting in the general perspective on how do we spend our money and for what do we spend it, it's that we spend so much money in the health sector for air pollution. And it's there was a huge assessment on European cities last year, which came out with unbelievable numbers. Each citizen has an impact on more than 1,000 euro a year in European cities on air pollution and in the health sector. So, and if we also collect the knowledge from impact of climate change or stormwater, heavy rainfall, which is affecting our infrastructure and damaging our infrastructure. And so if we put all together all that impacts we already have and we already pay for today, and we have lots of, we lose lots of quality of life through air pollution and noise and traffic and So if we invest in something better, which is making air cleaner, having less noise, having more health, and having more space for people to live out, stay outside the doors, meet neighbors, have stronger relations with neighbors, that all makes our cities much more resilient. And in the end, it keeps costs lower than today. Maybe the one example is which is maybe some years old today, but is also the stormwater streets in Copenhagen. And they assessed which damage we expect the next 10 years or 20 years to happen in that area. And they said, if we invest now and we can be sure that the damage will not affect us anymore, so we can have an investment which will give us a much better life in the streets, but also the resilience that the next stormwater event will not damage our neighborhoods. So that is a win-win situation. And so we have to be really to try to assess money flows and in different sectors to get the possibility to invest in the better solution.
Definitely agree. You definitely agree. And I mean, we have 4 more minutes left, so let's maybe take the last question. If anybody would like to place a question, either in the chat or use the reaction button. Meanwhile, I would use my chance and ask maybe the final question, if it comes to that. And that is, I see Peter is maybe getting ready. So what is your tip for urban planners, for people working in urban architecture? I mean, are there any, like, you now issued this long document, for the region. Is there any kind of, 2-3 tips, simple ones to keep in mind, or to focus on when doing a project, working for local government or whatever their position is, what to maybe kind of bring in as ideas or considerations in the planning?
Yeah, it's really hard to focus on one, but we experience in these times that CO2 emission is quite important for our future. And so if we do anything, we mostly cause CO2 emissions by that. So even if we try to plant a tree, we cause CO2 emissions which are higher than the tree can cover in decades. So we have to think, what are we doing and how are we doing that? And we have to take a step back and think about what are we building and why are we building it and which way are we building it and how can we handle that issues. Because we just say, oh yeah, let's build everything better, we just cause more damage than we want to prevent. So that is really important, and everybody has to rethink his habits. Even landscape architects are in charge to think about CO2 emissions, because even they cause CO2 emissions if they build landscapes, because this is a lot amount of infrastructure and work and pollution and concrete and stones and whatever. So every planner has to rethink his habits, and we have to have a much more interrelated cooperation. So maybe the landscape approach is also taking more the landscape perspective in the lead of urban planning. So also road engineers have to become able to think like a gardener and like a landscaper, because they have to care for trees and water much more than they did the last decade. They also only put it in the technical pipes and its water was gone. So this is all becoming more complex. And that's why what we think is important also, we want to bring that in our Biennial of Urban Landscape, so that we're very interdisciplinary, and we want to bring all that in professions and levels together to work together on solutions and to interchange and to learn from each other. So that would be a more active event where we want to invite everybody to join and to work with us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sebastian. I still have one point that I would like to ask if we have a chance to talk right now. Peter, would you like to have a question, or you're good? Perfect. So maybe just as a closing point from your side, what was the biggest challenge, or what do you see? Maybe we can put it in the future. We're talking a lot about the past, and the present. So what do you see as the biggest challenge to, realize the projects that you may see are needed in the region, just reshape it or expand more on this natural structures to build it up? I mean, what are the biggest challenges that you see?
I think the biggest challenge is financing. So we need to work on a new perspective on financing, and that will enable a lot of great solutions.
Okay, good. That was a straightforward thing. Yes, please, Peter.
Oh, you are muted, Peter.
Perhaps there is an answer with new European Bauhaus. On your demand for financing, the answer could be new European Bauhaus.
European Bauhaus, yeah. Is that a project that you are more involved in, or maybe you can tell us a little bit more, Peter, on that? Or do you know, Sebastian, are you aware of that?
I hope that he's aware.
Yeah, I know your new European Bauhaus, but I think, yeah, this is a great idea of the European Union, which is also bringing up great examples. Mm-hmm. But I think that financing, under the understanding of financial flows is just needed in every sector. So insurances have to rethink, health insurance, infrastructure insurances, banks, local governments, private investors. They all have to be able to have a different perspective on financing flows and invest in that green infrastructure.
Yes, I agree, but I think also that we architects and urban planners, we have to promote this new European Bauhaus, because there are very concrete ways of financing. There are now many calls, they are open, and the aim is also to include private sector in the co-financing. It was so I have been also master architect of the European Commission. That's why I'm very involved in a new European Bauhaus, and we organize many conferences, also for private sector, also for cities, etc. Now, as I'm no more employee of the Commission, but now I'm very active in European Bauhaus, and that, as I told, we as an NGO, we organize many conferences and information sessions about financing and about including also all banks, etc. in these projects.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So I will connect to you, Peter, and we already are in contact with European Bauhaus and our biennial to implement and showcase some projects from that Bauhaus.
Yes. On the webpage of European Bauhaus, you will find many financial schemes, and these calls they are published there.
Thank you so much, Peter, also for sharing this. It's an interesting project. Certainly, we're going to include it also a reference link for companies, people that work in the segment, so they have again this information. And let's follow up on that. If you have comments, we will have a kind of follow-up post after this call, just for people to get a little bit more information and get some references, which Sebastian mentioned with the self-assessment from the European Union. That was also quite interesting, and this new European Bauhaus, that is also quite a point to tackle and share more. So many thanks for your time, gentlemen, and to everybody. Sebastian, thanks so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, sharing insights, the tips around where to find best practices. That is also great, and what you also see as the challenge. I think totally to the point. So it was a great pleasure having you in this episode of Frogeex Green Tech Talks on green cities. Peter, shoot ahead before we close the call. Well, and thank you so much also for taking the time and being here with us. There will be a replay available. Happy if you join other discussions. We will have a separate discussion on biodiversity and in the urban area. I believe that's on the week of May 3rd. So I will invite you as well if you find the time to be part of the discussion. was a great pleasure again. I wish you a very good rest of the day. My name is Jana Skokan. I'm the co-founder of Frogeex, and I'll be with you in the following episodes of Green Tech Talks. And there is a lot to talk about in terms of sustainable living and a lot to learn, as we know. So looking forward to that.
Thank you very much, Jana.
Great pleasure. Great pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you so much, Peter. Bye-bye, and everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Peter.